Hello, I'm Ed Reed, editor of E-FWD. I'm delighted to be sitting here next to Daniel Johnson. Daniel, how are you? How was the evening for you?
Very good. As ever, really interesting discussion. Lots of things to go away and think about.
I mean, there's been a lot of discussion around, I suppose, political risk. I think it feels like inevitably in this sort of situation. Do you feel that the new government is doing what it can to kind of get through to the energy industry? Is the point getting across about the kind of the big plan, the mission boards? Is it getting through?
Well, in a sense, that's not for me to say whether it's getting through. That's for industry to say. But look, I don't think this government could be any clearer that it is taking energy seriously, the transition seriously. It is one of the missions. And what's more, we are endeavouring to put our money where our mouth is. Now, I understand the frustrations. People would like kind of the absolute clarity, but I think it's important that we get these things right. But clearly, the political commitment is there, and we are going to be measured against that. And I think that's really important.
I mean, obviously, we're kind of looking at this point where, Rachel Reeves has spoken a lot about the sort of fiscal black hole, and obviously it feels like there's clearly kind of pressure within government.
Yeah.
How do you think that those discussions are going between sort of DESNZ and the Treasury? Is DESNZ able to get its point across about the importance of the energy transition and this the sort of the opportunity, I suppose?
Well, look, I think the most important thing to say is that is not a discussion that's just happening between DESNZ and the Treasury. James Murray is spending a huge amount of time engaging directly with the sector, making sure that we get this decision right. And I think we absolutely recognise just the concern and the importance of the fiscal regime to the energy sector. So absolutely, that discussion is being had. But let's be clear, it's not just about a discussion between two government departments. It's a discussion between ministers and the industry itself.
And in terms of let's look at the sort of the near-term goals of I say near-term sort of 2030 decarbonisation of the power system. It feels like a big challenge. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts to it, but it feels like there's going to be needed to be a lot of government work to tackle those kind of questions around risk, right?
Yes, but I think the thing I would say is that I think there's a really clear-eyed view that the government understands that its role in terms of providing that certainty. So, it's not just a sort of, here are some targets over to you in the industry to deliver. I think there is a real understanding about the roadblocks that things like, grid can present, issues in the planning system, and a real clear-eyed determination to make sure that those things are smoothed and removed or at least streamlined in order to provide that. So I think absolutely that there are risks there, but I think there's a real commitment to both de-risk directly, but also I think ensure that where the government has touch points with those decision-making processes, those timelines, those investment parameters, that it does what it can to provide the certainty and clarity that industry needs in order to invest in the infrastructure that we require.
It feels like there's a kind of an opportunity for government to sort of take on some risk itself, right? In terms of sort of market structures, at least, right? I mean, I think, REMA, we've had discussions around changing pricing. We've had discussions around new ways of, doing CFDs, about, maybe moving away from allocation rounds. Do you think that there's any kind of appetite of that happening, or is it just sort of sticking to the...
Oh, not just appetite. I mean, I think absolutely. I think, first of all, let's learn the lessons. I think, Contracts for Difference has been a success, albeit with maybe a hiccup in the previous auction round. But I think certainly in terms of the discussions that I have, I think there is a kind of a realization that we need to look at what other parts of the energy transition, energy markets might require those sorts of interventions to provide that certainty, that demand smoothing. So, look, and this is where I am mildly spitballing. So, please take it in that vein. I think thinking about, well, first of all, energy storage, are we getting those elements right within the energy mix that we're creating? I think likewise looking at the other parts of our energy mix going forward, whether that's synthetic fuels, SAF, are there hydrogen, are there market structures, market approaches that can de-risk or at least smooth demand to ensure that we get the investment. And clearly, we are seeing other countries moving ahead because they have those sorts of mechanisms. So, hydrogen investment in the US because of the Inflation Reduction Act and so on and so forth. And I think we need to make sure that we are at least providing a level playing field or have comparable mechanisms to ensure that we get the investment we need in those sorts of things in this country too.
It feels like we've got a clear target for decarbonising the power system, and there's kind of really concentration in the mind. But it also feels like there's a tension within that, isn't there? There's a question of do we achieve the target at the expense of sort of supporting the supply chain? Do we just import turbine blades from elsewhere? How does the government find a path between achieving that target but also sort of providing that boost for sort of domestic manufacturing that clearly is so important to growth plans?
So, this is where, getting GB Energy right is so important, because clearly that's a significant part of what it needs to do. Now, we will see that plan develop and deploy. But for me, it is about securing as much of the value of the supply chain that we can, not repeating the mistakes that we've seen to date. But so I think, and there's also other elements such as the jobs bonus, which are an element of that. But I think it's this is where we need a broader industrial strategy. I think a real recognition of where we can capture value in supply chains, especially in emerging technologies, and hopefully we have an approach that can deliver that. I think it's now about implementing that properly to ensure that we do.
And so in terms of an industrial strategy, government would be picking sort of winners and losers?
No. And actually, I think this is really important. I think when you look at the approach that we have, both in terms of GB Energy, but also the National Infrastructure Fund, it's very explicitly about leveraging in private finance, the sort of a 1-to-4 ratio. So I think there's a recognition here that the government has a role here, I think, to de-risk, I think, to pump prime, but this is not a rolling back to 1970s style picking national champions. I think there is a recognition that the private sector is best able to assess and prioritize investment. I think it's about leveraging in, using the public money to perform that role and pump prime. I don't think it's about picking winners. It's about enabling investment, pump priming, de-risking.
Fantastic. Daniel, thank you so much.
No problem.